Beneath the streets of Westside lies the Thorn, a blood-stained gladiatorial pit where the player can prove their mettle against the mutated monsters of the wasteland. Despite being one of the most unique and complex locations in New Vegas, the most interesting aspect of it never made it into the final game. This is the Thorn's cut content.
The clamor of our bloodthirsty crowds reaches every corner of the wasteland. But I'll pretend that your ignorance doesn't offend me, stranger. This is the Thorn. Here's where the strong make a name for themselves, and the weak are fed to the jaws of hell.
There are many remnants of an unused quest called the Thorn Mayhem, the most obvious of which is the terminal inside Red Lucy's bedroom having no purpose whatsoever. There's entries for a ledger and journal, neither of which can be accessed, as well as a submenu that informs you the creature's cages are secure. There's a disabled option on this submenu named Maintenance Power Shutdown, linked to an unused variable called Pit Destroyed. Choosing this option would give the player the message, shut down power to creature cages, yes or no. Choosing yes would give you negative karma and cause a horde of deathclaws, night stalkers, rad scorpions, giant manuses, and fire geckos to spawn inside the Thorn's main area before moving to a marker on the catwalk near the exit. Red Lucy and her guards would attempt to fight them off, but they're hopelessly outmatched, and all of them, including the audience, would quickly be massacred. Strangely, the creatures aren't set to be hostile to the player and are all allied to one another. It doesn't really make sense for random creatures to be working together or for them to avoid the player, but this likely would have been altered if it was completed. This is as far as the quest got before getting axed, but an unused variable in a faction that makes the monsters hostile to the citizens of Westside suggests they would have spilled out into the streets of Westside and killed some, if not every member of the settlement, potentially failing a number of quests in the process if they hadn't been completed yet. There are still unused lines that would have played while the quest was occurring and after it was completed.
Run! Be scot-free!
Death claws are loose! Get out of here!
It can't be. How the hell?
Holy shit, run for your lives!
All hell broke loose when the creatures escaped from the Thorn.
One of those beasts cut my friend in half. How the hell did they escape from Red Lucy?
Can't believe that the Thorn's no more.
A few lines in the final game even seem to foreshadow this event.
Can't imagine this place will ever disappear.
Another series of lines should have played when Red Lucy died, which is something that can happen unlike the rest of this quest, but the variable for her death is never triggered.
Red Lucy was a fine warrior and a beautiful woman.
We'll miss Red Lucy down here.
There's also two unused keys. A master key that likely would have made it so the player could reach the terminal inside Red Lucy's bedroom, and another that would have unlocked the cages themselves, presumably giving the player multiple ways to trigger the quest. As a result of the cage's key being cut, the cell containing the cage creatures is entirely pointless apart from displaying the monsters. There's a handful of cut ambient sounds for ghouls, giant rats, and centaurs at the Thorn, as well as unused variables for attaining a centaur and golden geckos during the quest Bleed Me Dry. But none of these creatures actually appear here. Notably, there's even an empty cage they might have been meant to inhabit. All of this suggests the player could have fought additional monsters in matches, and that they likely would have been involved in the Mayhem questline. I suspect the centaur objective was cut since the quest revolves around recovering the eggs of various creatures, and centaurs are a byproduct of FEV experimentation, meaning they're likely infertile. In a note, area designer Jorge Salgado revealed why the quest was cut. Script to control the sequence of events, general mayhem and pandemonium, following the shutdown of electric current to creature cages in the Thorn. Cut. Not enough time to implement as polished as it should be. During my interview with Jorge, I asked him about it. Yes, that was exactly the idea. Rather than a quest, it's a series of events that you could unleash if the morality of the Thorn and Red Lucy didn't agree with you. What better payback than having a gladiator's revolt gushing out of the Thorn into the outskirts of New Vegas? As I mentioned in the script, there wasn't enough time to get all of that working properly, so I cut it. A shame. It would have been cool, but I do not regret it. there were bigger fish to fry. And the Thorn was one of the most complex areas of the game insofar as events, minigames, quests, and above all, the crazy scripting I had to come up with to make it all work. And it's still buggy. As Jorge mentioned, the Thorn is buggy and also somewhat half-baked. If you loot Night Stalkers after killing them in a fight, you'll find they bizarrely drop dog hides and dog meat. If you talk to Red Lucy after she switches into lingerie, she'll spontaneously change back into her default clothes. Did you know that New Vegas unintentionally features necrophilia? If you kill Red Lucy while she's laying down and then lay down next to her, the fade to black sex scene still occurs. If you bring Eddie along as a companion, it'll attack your opponents from above during cage matches and the guards don't even care. That's a good robot. The Thorn closes every night between 1 and 6 AM, and the entrance is completely inaccessible during these hours. However, if you enter before 1 and stay after closing hours, you're never kicked out. The spectators will play lines like it's open during this time, despite them having dialogue about it being closed.
Until next time.
Great fighting today.
There's always more next day.
That was a good day for the Thorn.
They also never leave the Thorn under any circumstances. Red Lucy has a line for it being after hours, but there's no conditions for it to actually play.
No more fights today. The Thorn needs time to soak its tribute of blood.
Perhaps strangest of all, after the end of a fight, creatures immediately turn around and sprint straight back into their cages. This is inherently weird, but even more so when it comes to cazadors, who should theoretically just fly up out of the pit and murder everyone. Amusingly, there's 2 unused child spectators set up to appear here, but I'm guessing they were cut since it was once possible for everyone down here to die. It's also possible they were removed to improve the area's frame rate, as there are well over 10 other unused spectators. One last noteworthy aspect, Jorge Salgado gained fame as an Oblivion modder prior to being hired by Obsidian, and he fittingly snuck in a reference to the Elder Scrolls series. When spoken to, the guards at the Thorn will say,
We're watching you, stranger.
a reference to a very similar line in Morrowind.
We're watching you, scum.
Thankfully, the quest can be somewhat restored via a mod by Moburma, and Ludo recently released a mod that vastly improves the area in a lore-friendly way. It's also compatible with the previously mentioned mod, and you can find links to both of them below. The Mayhem quest could have gone a long way in differentiating the Thorn from other locations, and would have ranked amongst the most evil actions in the series. Ultimately though, all of this was left on the cutting room floor.